Well, I will start because so we can start talking about the film. Well, first of all, really congratulations. I love the film. I love the aesthetic of the film. The idea, it's great, but also the aesthetic. I'm always like to look for reference in my head and also compare with different directors. I was thinking it has nothing to do, but there is a movie called Come True by Anthony Scott Burns that also he's a Philip Dick fan. I don't know if you are, but he also deals with this kind of reality, the possibility that we are not living in a reality, but we choose this kind of reality. And it's kind of interesting. I don't know if you watched that film, but I want
I didn't
I
know.
don't understand your mindset. Where did you get this idea, and what is the, because when directors or novels they express an idea, they just want to express something deep inside them. So what is that inside you that you want to express with this film?
So, the way the film came about is quite novel in the sense that the writer producer Carl, he initially wanted to write this movie almost as like a, a processing, a catharsis of something that actually happened to his cousin. So what happens in the movie about the firefighter having his policy denied, that happened to Carl's cousin, and his cousin died of a heart attack, I believe it was, while being a firefighter, and his policy was denied. And he wanted to sort of explore the humanity of who is the person behind that decision. You know what I mean? And that's really our character, Frank, which is, we're not talking about a simple good and evil. We're talking about indirect evil, somebody who is just doing their job. And just doing my job is a sentence I think that has haunted much of modern society and many of our problems. And Carl wrote the film specifically for me because he'd seen a lot of my low budget music videos, and I grew up like watching Michel Gondry and Spike Jonze music videos, and I love just interesting camera moves and trickery and fun transitions and like kinetic moving stuff. And I grew up just really idolizing a lot of music video directors. And so we wanted to make something kinetic and fun that also speculated on a lot of, not speculated, but really sort of, I don't say the word meditated because there's something very unmeditative about our film. It's very frenetic. It's a very intense ride. But we definitely wanted to reflect on some of the most psychedelic philosophical realizations that you have in these altered states, particularly for us personally. And I know it's not incriminating now that time has passed, but I gave Carl DMT and we smoked it together, and he had a very profound spiritual experience, and that sort of like gave him a real taste of that altered state, that other world. And to me, I had very profound, lasting experiences from these altered states that linger with me still today, still very much shape the person I am. So for me, I wanted the aesthetic of the film, because we were going for these heightened things, because the film in and of itself is, I tend to use the phrase like a psychedelic parable. It almost has like a parable feeling to it, where it's like some of the things feel full and actual and real, and some feel a bit more surface, like they're kind of playing a role to sort of take us as the audience and Frank the character on this ride, on this exploratory journey. So I wanted the aesthetic of it to also feel a little bit heightened, a little bit surreal, almost like a graphic novel. That's why I went for the anamorphic width, went for this high contrast, very colorful lighting, big surreal moving camera moves that hid transitions and cuts, almost like you're just being dragged through this surreal story. So really what informed the aesthetic was, I think, trying to make a world which was like neo-real, like quasi-realistic. Like, yes, it looks real, yes, it's beautiful, but there was something a little heightened, something a bit surreal about it, which I think would then bring an audience more comfortably into pretty intense philosophical thought, and also some pretty aggressive, bordering on just all the way fiction reflections on the nature of reality. And I think if you're asking your audience to make that departure with you, you got to make a world in which they feel comfortable straying away from what is considered a common knowledge of reality.
Mm. As a visual artist, I always find that I mean, directors as visual artists, they find inspiration not only in literature but more in artists like painters in order to choose the right color, the right effect. Of course, other filmmakers. In your case, what was the the main inspiration? I want people to feel like this character. So, what kind of vibe you can see in the film?
I mean, I really, really, again, I don't know what the statute of limitations is on admitting crimes, but me and Patrick Lawler, the VFX supervisor, we would take LSD and take notebooks
Oh.
and write what was happening to us. And because we did all, it's just myself and Patrick, we did all the visual effects in the movie. So we were trying to emulate the real sort of tactile experience of psychedelia, because the more earnest we could make that, the more I think it could engage anybody who had dabbled in that world. It could call back to something true that they'd felt, something that they'd experienced. And I drew a lot of like aesthetic choices from trying to make things feel psychedelic. But then in the real world where he navigated, I'm trying to think of like if there was one isolated thing. I've just always been drawn to high contrast, dark imagery with really, really bold colors.
Mm.
And if I really think about like, this is such an obscure pull, but there is one comic book I read many, many times over when I was a kid. And I lived in Austria. We didn't have a comic book store where I was growing up, but I had this one issue of Todd McFarlane, I think it was, who did Spawn.
Yeah, yeah.
So Spawn had such like, just like, it was so textured. If you're looking at just paper, just ink on paper, but it was just so rich and gritty and textured, and I loved the high contrast of it. But he also did a crossover thing of like Wolverine and Witchblade. And I didn't know what the series was. I barely knew what the character of Witchblade was, but I just had this one comic book my friend had given me, and I can still now in my mind see all the pages, and I can see the high contrast, rich, colorful imagery. And it's that kind of heightened reality that I was really trying to make with the wave. And then I work with my longtime collaborator, Anne Grasso, who's a cinematographer, and we definitely share some brain cells when it comes to aesthetics. Like we're both very, very drawn to high contrast, colorful imagery.
You should send the movie to Todd to see what he
Oh
thinks.
yeah.
I can get I can get to him.
I bet you can. Yeah, my British
Yeah,
sensibilities
yeah,
stop me from
yeah.
knocking on people's doors.
Yeah. Actually, I do that. I introduce people that they say, oh, I am a fan of this guy. Okay, you can meet him. So yeah, no, I when I was a kid, I also I remember I get to Spawn thanks to the animated series that was made by him. And I remember not only the visuals, but the kind of story he used to tell was so crude, dark, cruel. And I was fascinated by it. Again, I was 13 years old, and my father they didn't allow me to watch that kind of things. But my grandfather, on the other hand, he allows me. So well, because I remember it was in HBO at 2 a.m. in the morning, right? So I went to my grandfather's house to watch the film. And I think that kind of dark ideas enlightens the imagination of any artist. I don't know if what.
Oh, definitely.
As a kid, you think that was your main influence, or you can find others?
Oh, I mean, there was certainly others. I think I grew up when I was from the age of like 5 until 10. I lived in Austria, and there was one video store that would rent out movies in English, and my German wasn't very good, so my parents would let me go to the video store and just rent anything. Like I was not forbidden from watching anything. So I was always drawn to like, I mean, I was watching like Night of the Living Dead when I was about 6 years old, and just weirdly, the one that scared me the most was John Landis's Michael Jackson Thriller, the extended
Really?
thing. Yeah, I don't know what it was. It's the imagery of it was just like, it was the first time I ever had to, and maybe the last time I've ever left a room because I was so scared. couldn't watch him turn into a werewolf again. I was like, oh, this is too much. I mean, I was 5, so it's reasonable. But yeah, I used to watch just a lot of dark stuff, and I found myself particularly drawn to the darker things because the stakes just felt so much higher. Everything felt like the stakes are high, the consequences are higher, and also then the comedy is so much funnier because the levity against something so horrific became so much more like it became so much funnier, and the romance was so much more, everything's so much more rewarding when you get to take a breath, when you get to sort of step out of the fear for a second. And that was, I think, that experience I was very much trying to do in The Wave, in the sense of like we operated this theory. I called it my yo-yo theory. Like, you send the yo-yo down, it spins and spins, you do your tricks, and it comes back up, and you take a breath. And so that's what I want to do, is like take you into these dark, horrible worlds, and then come back, have a little moment of romance and beauty, have some levity, some jokes between the characters, and then back into the intensity in the next chapter, building, and then boom, smash into the next scene, and then that breath is out again, the yo-yo's back in your hand. And we're trying to do that again. And I'm just now thinking, like, I think one director who massively affected me because of the dark territory they always navigated was Chan-wook Park, or Park Chan-wook. I never remember which way to say that, but man, in 2003, I got Old Boy on limited, just like some DVD from South Korea, and I had a multi-region DVD player. I must have watched that movie 30 times and shown it to anybody who could stomach it. That original Old Boy, and then obviously Sympathy for Mr. Vengeance, Lady Vengeance, and the rest of his filmography. But Old Boy particularly was so gritty, so impossibly dark, such messy, broken characters, and it affected me so much from, like, I think it's important to say things with your films, and I don't know necessarily if anything poetic or universal was said in Old Boy per se. I mean, of course there was, but I don't know. It wasn't that affected me so much. It was that it was such a planned, articulated, and beautifully constructed piece of entertainment. Like, I'll never forget that transition when the subway train comes through the frame and when they're in the room. It's just like there was nothing felt like it was figured out in the edit. Everything felt articulated and with purpose and drive and pace, and I definitely I feel like, irrelevant of what I've done, I've always tried to emulate that.
It's funny because my father is a psychologist, and sometimes I have this vibe. That's why I like to talk about horror and sci-fi, because inside every person, every artist, there is this common themes. And in your case, I can relate to, because Spawn, Old Boy, they share something. You are seeing, you can consider a very a tragedy. I mean, Spawn, you can say is superhero horror, but deep down it's a drama.
It's tragic.
A tragedy. It's a tragedy. I mean, I don't remember it was gore and whatever, but I didn't mind, and I wasn't watching because of the gore. I was watching because of the story, the tragic story. And in the case of Old Boy, the level of crudeness, I don't know how to say it in English, is the same. It's so crude, the story, what happened. Actually, it's an adaptation of Edipo Rey, the Oedipus. It's an adaptation.
Right.
If you think
about it. I didn't even think about that.
Yeah. Actually, it's one of the best adaptations, because to move from one media to other, in this case, theater, theater to movie, is very difficult. But the director had the ability, the skill to put that, and really, again, and why? And there's a reason why we are drawn to these stories, because they're human stories with a lot of emotion, with intensity. And I want to see now something you're right, because in this case, in the case of the movie, you express that in the visuals. I don't know if the horror story you are working on, it's something you write, because I really would like to see, a script, that you write. Then
I will send you my one off the books, obviously. But I think the stuff I'm drawn to, I think particularly from these movies, um, idealism and injustice, and the cocktail of those two have always stuck in my head. And that's truly like, the thing about Old Boy is not necessarily just the darkness that happens to it; it's the injustice that Odesu navigates as he tries to figure out what happened to him. It is this: you're rooting for him, no matter how dark and broken and horrible and violent he is. You're still in his corner, being like, "Well, you shouldn't lock him up for 15 years. I don't know what to tell you. Like you shouldn't do these things." So those are things I'm drawn to, and I think like one of the things also that I'm drawn to from all those worlds is broken people, just broken people trying to navigate the world. And certainly in the scripts that I work on, stuff that I write, it is always driven by, I wouldn't go as far as say like anti-heroes per se, but definitely flawed, broken human beings struggling in some way or another with some facet of idealism. And I definitely, I think I'm drawn a little bit more to sci-fi than I am to horror, but all of it is always grounded in human stories, which I like. I love comedy. I'm just a big child in that regard, and I like to laugh, and I like to make people laugh. But I feel like the heart is the thing that keeps you going. I mean, I will watch. I'll put on like some amazing sci-fi movie with the greatest premise in the world, but if they don't make me care about the people, I'll turn it off. Like even if they hook me in with the plot, if it's not human, if it's not a real human story at the heart of it, there isn't real emotion and humanity, then I'll just check out. I can't be invested. Whereas I'll watch a movie that has not that lofty and not that high concept of a plot, but they've managed to engage me with the human beings navigating that world. I can be captivated. That's kind of what I'm trying to. I think that's largely what I'm trying to do. Like the horror movie I have coming up is a horror comedy, and it is very much. I'm playing on subverting the expectations of the genre. I'm playing with I'm trying to deviate from certain things that are familiar, but at the heart of it, it is a buddy movie. It is a buddy movie of two very funny, silly characters. And I wrote it with a friend of mine who's a improv comedian, so it's very comedy driven. But it's dark, but it's funny, and it's just hard. It's a buddy movie where more people have to grow up.
Horror comedy is very difficult to do. I have a lot of
I know.
here,
That's why
because the problem is to find the right balance. I mean, I can think there's only a few good horror comedies. I don't know. Well, Evil Dead, because horror comedy, bizarre horror. I mean, it's kind of difficult to do. I mean, Evil Dead, of course, Bad Taste.
But I don't like camp so much. I think some of the Evil Dead stuff could definitely place in camp. To me, like a horror comedy, like I think like Shaun of the Dead, for example, is to me, because certainly this film I have coming up is definitely more comedy than it is horror. There's no two ways about it. But the horror has to be real. The stakes have to be real. And in terms of my job as a director, it's got to be stylish. I got to make you jump. I've got to make you scared and uncertain about what's happening. I got to build up your expectations and deviate in another direction and toy with my audience to give you a ride so that you enjoy this movie, so you don't see everything coming right out the gate. And so I think Shaun of the Dead does that beautifully. It really does. It really takes beautiful dramatic turns while still being fun.
I made a list with my friends of the best horror comedies, because we have a big discussion about this genre, and I start, I make a list of horror comedies in different countries. There's a Cuban horror comedy called Juan de los Muertos, Juan of the Dead, in reference to John. I don't know if you watched that film. You have to.
Can I get you to email me this list?
Yes.
You send me the Argentine
actually, I can put you in contact with the director. He made an anthology film in the US with Demian Rugnan from Terrified and another directors living in the US. It's Alejandro Burgues. It's, oh my God, it's so, because in Cuba there's a zombie a zombie outbreak, whatever. And apparently, well, of course, the government denies there are zombies. They are, contra-revolutionaries, blah, blah, blah. And the problem is not that they are zombies, is that if a family member becomes a zombie, it's too hard to kill him. So this guy Juan say, okay, I'm going to open a business. I kill your loved one. That's a good.
That's wonderful.
Yeah. Yeah, you watch the film, and then if you
wonderful.
want, I call Alejandro, and you can meet him.
Absolutely. Yeah,
And
I'll just fangirl at him.
and then the other one, there's a French horror comedy called I remember the English barbecue in French, but in was someone's like it rare. I think it's the title. It's about a couple of butchers. They have this. They sell meat, and suddenly these vegans come and destroy the local. So they start to chasing them, and they kill one of the guys, the vegans, in the process. Say, oh my God, because they ran over with the car. It was an accident. So they hire the body, and to hide the body, they sell the meat. And they say it's meat from, I don't know, Iran or wherever. But people, and they start having a lot of success because, vegan, they eat healthy, so the meat is good. So they start killing more vegans. So it's so good.
That is so French.
yeah, I lived in France like 1 year and a half, and I know that. Yeah, that's a French humor.
Yeah.
The other one I can remember, the columnist from Austria. Oh no, from Netherlands. The columnist, a blogger who's he is tired of receiving hate from people on the internet and decides to take things like and that. And well, yeah. But I mean, but again, it's and of course, I really would love to see your horror film. So, what's the premise, if you can say that?
Yeah, it's still not 100% on the title, but which is scary because we're going to go into production probably at the end of the summer. But very simply, it's a story of two stupid best friends. One of them just has a failed proposal, so his friend takes him up to the cabin he just inherited to help him get over his ex-girlfriend and have a little boys' holiday. But it turns out he actually wants him up there so he can help sell the cabin. And the problem is that the cabin that he inherited, this cabin from his sort of Bruja grandmother, who opened a portal to a much more sinister dimension between dimensions, is kind of, I think, the best way to phrase it. So it's almost, I'm always drawn to stories that are in the middle of a very busy Venn diagram. Venn diagrams, there's lots of circles overlapping. So this is like comedy, horror, friend drama, but like I wrote it with a friend of mine, so it's and he's a proper improv and stand-up comedian, so it's like there's just so much silly fun character stuff. So it's kind of like a buddy movie as they navigate a story as we sort of slowly learn the reality of what it is. But essentially, two buddies going away to get over a broken relationship end up having to interact with the portal to a dark dimension.
Oh, well, that's great. Dark Dimension, kind of Hellraiser, Evil Dead.
We're going for, so again, like it's funny, I feel like so many of these things they kind of present like just something I've seen before, and for me the big appeal was we're saturated. All of us are saturated. We've seen it all. Like I got pitched a movie to do one with parallel dimensions, and there was spider creatures coming out of it. I'm like, well, I don't want to see fucking spiders. You know what I mean? Like, I have spiders on Earth. I want to see something different. So this dimension we're going through is sort of like, think of it as like the connective tissue between realities. So it's sort of infinite possibility. It's not even like the multiverse. It's the connective fabric between everything. It's where ideation can be thought, where horror, evil incarnate can exist, but it materializes itself in this kind of like very silly but very dark abstract reality. So it's hard to sort of say it is like Event Horizon or it is like Hellraiser. No, it's not. It's amorphous. amorphous, dark, and absurd.
Oh, that's great. Well, I will help you to do the stream because I want to
Yeah,
see.
I'd narrowed down.
Actually, that's the whole reason I'm doing. Well, the true reason I'm working as this kind of connector publicity is just I want to see this film. Okay,
Yeah.
guys, meet each other, do the film. Come on.
Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, because again, deep down, besides being all the deep things I do, I'm a fan. So I'm as Brandon told me, I'm a proactive fan.
Yeah, I remember you telling me that on a call. That phrase has really stuck with me. That a good producer is a proactive fan, and I
Yeah.
think that's poetic. I think that's beautiful. That's exactly what it should be.
Yeah, because you really want to see, the best. You want to get out the best of people, the best of the artists.
Yeah.
Sometimes artists, I have friends I have made. Well, there's the film we're going to show in the festival called Into the Abyss. It's a Lovecraftian post-apocalyptic made with $2,000, something like that, and say you cannot do that a film with that. Yes, you can. You spend like 60 days, and I mean with 10 people inside, and they use constant raining. So you are all the time flying. Yeah. I mean, say, come on, you did that with the problem is you don't have money, you have a lot of creativity. That's what happened in Argentina. So they flood the set all the time. Well, it was hell. Well, the guy spent.
That sounds like a $2,000 water bill alone.
No. I know. They use the system they designed themselves. I mean, these very creative people. And if you're going to do a post-apocalyptic with a lot of budget, use a lot of close up. The character. And that was very interesting. And how they did, I watched it on the Rojo Sangre festival. I said, wow, you spend 1 year because all the post-production, it was made by me. I'm sitting there in the computer 1 year, and that's how.
That was the same on the Wave. The Wave is just me and a friend in his apartment for 4 months nonstop, just working on ourselves. But that's also the thing with this, the horror comedy I have is, it was written, I was doing sketches with this guy, just sketch comedies for YouTube. And we wanted to make a story because it's more fun, something longer. And he's from California, and his parents have like a little cabin 5 or 6 hours north of where we live. So we're like, okay, so we can get this cabin for free. What can we do that highlights your skills, that's my skills, and is an environment we can control and shoot for free? So we wrote this entire film just basically being like, what can we make with no backing? Because this industry is much more reactive than it is proactive. I find to be the case. If you make something cool, they're just like, oh, great, I want to be part of it. But in terms of rolling the dice to actually take the risk and make something cool, there's not a lot of people standing in line waiting to be like, hey, let me give you some money. So we wrote this film to be very, very small, and we just kept rewriting because we kind of fell in love with it. And now we're sort of in talks with 2 or 3 different financing bodies to potentially fund it and make it a little bit bigger than we intended. But even if that doesn't happen, I'll still go make this movie by ourselves over the weekends, because if you can keep your ideas small, you keep your sandbox small, you can make some lovely sandcastles.
Yeah, the important thing is to make people are so say, oh, I need a lot of money for FX. No, you need a compelling story. I mean, one of my favorite dark fantasy films is Ink, I-N-K, I told you, I think, by Jake Winant. It was made with 2,000K, I think, back then. So, and that's amazing. Yeah, I remember, I mean, the animations we made, like Death on the Clock with Chris Kelly, the actor, and the other one I wrote, The Suicide with Gideon Bookhart. I mean, people cry watching that short film, and it was made with nothing. I mean, like $500. So again, people are the problem sometimes with young filmmakers. They are so anxious to do things instead of telling stories. I don't know, in the States it's the same.
I think it's the same everywhere, and I also think there's a lot of pressure to. I think of all the art forms, filmmaking is one of the hardest. It's one of the most expensive. You know what I mean? It's not like, if you want to be a painter, you can just get a bunch of paper or canvas and practice and paint. But to go and make a movie is and you can find cheaper ways to do it, but it's not intrinsically a very cheap or easy thing to do. And I think there is a lot of, and I definitely suffered from it as well, where you kind of try to do the thing you've seen before so you can substantiate yourself in your own mind to be like, okay, I just did this thing that was like that thing I loved. So maybe I'm not a charlatan. Maybe I'm not a fake. You know, you try to convince yourself that you're the real deal. And only after a certain amount of self-reflection and confidence do you sit there and be like, I might just have my own strange voice and I need to honor it. I need to try. I need to try and see if this thing is real. I need to, you know, it's funny. I look back at my very first music video I did when I was 17 years old. And there's still so much of me in that. There's still so much of my humor, my style, the darkness, all of that is in the wave. Like we are all our own very, very strange radio frequency. And I feel like part of the artistic journey is learning to just hone your antenna and be your own radio frequency without trying to do what is expected of you to give people what you think they want. Just be your own weird self, because everything else is performance.
Actually, I would like to contact you with those people. You know, I send you Lenny, what made in 10 days with $10,000. Yeah. Well, the director had a stroke after that. He's fine. I'm working in something, but that wasn't because of the film.
Yeah, you told me that was afterwards.
But really, you should see that. Maybe also there's another guy called Samot. He made short film. Maybe you can talk to them and they can give you some tricks to, you know, to do things, but with the same quality, but with less.
Yeah.
That will help you a lot. I don't know if you watch. I told you about you know, Travis Milloy. You know, the guy who wrote a movie called Pandorum. It's a sci-fi horror event horizon.
Yes, you told me about him. Yeah.
Well, I remember he told me he wanted to do another indie film. He did with Chris Kelly, a guy, how you say, a film called Infinity Chamber. And he told me, I mean, if you wait for the money, you're never going to do it. So he started himself all the scenario, all the things. He started building. So by doing that, also, well, Chris helped to get the film done. That's the kind of actor you have to work with. People that say, okay, most actors, they wait for the directors or the producer to call them, but no, let's do this. You know, an actor producer,
no,
and it's difficult. You should ask Chris or Chris Kelly. He's a very proactive guy. The guy,
I'm happily, like anybody I can meet who is as masochistic as me with making this stuff makes me very happy. It makes me feel like I'm not alone.
No, but you are not alone. I mean, I feel strange introducing you to people that lives nearby because I'm in Argentina, but there's a lot of people there. I mean, of course, in Argentina, I can introduce people, but Chris Kelly, there's this guy, you know, the movie Anti-Birth, the guy, Danny Perez. It's a very surreal, you know, psychedelic film. Google it, Anti-Birth. And I remember...
Oh, Anti-Birth.
Anti-Birth. Yeah, you know the film? It's kind of a very madness. I mean...
Yes. Yes, you told me about this.
You know that?
Wait, actually, did you tell me about this? Or was it... I'm trying to think if you told me about this or there's a small group of indie horror filmmakers I chat to here. Actually, yeah, it's you that told me about this. Yeah, he did this film. I'm trying to remember what you told me it was, like
a psychedelic,
like struggle to get.
It's funny because when I met Danny, I said, "Oh, I love your film. The aesthetic is amazing," and he started crying and say, "Thank you. It was so terrible to this film. The producers hate me, and they didn't let me to do this and this and this." And but the aesthetic, the surreal. I mean, he's now he do video clips as a lot of directors, but again, that's someone you should look. He's I mean, again, he's in LA. I will introduce you to. Actually, I was going to tell you, I create a WhatsApp group with all the directors in LA. So do you have WhatsApp? Because I
do, yeah.
And
I can send you my number
and you can join the group. All the people are there, so you can.
Oh man, absolutely, yeah. I've only in COVID did I start trying to be less introverted and actually start connecting with people. And it's been really, really wonderful speaking to fellow creators.
Yeah, by the way, this is Nicolas. It's a young filmmaker.
Hi, Nicolas.
He's 21. He is a fan of your film. So he wanted to talk to you. Sorry, Nicolas, Guille.
Hi, Nicolas.
Hello, how's it going? Thank you for waiting me. I'm sorry I'm late. It was because I couldn't connect the Wi-Fi, but here I am.
Okay.
And ready to talk a little
Absolutely,
bit about the movie and of course I know Adrian told you something about the podcast about Ansia. Is it?
He told me a little bit about it, but I would love to hear more.
Well, okay. Sorry, my English isn't quite good.
Mi español es malo también, so puedes hablar lento.
Okay, all right. Well, I was wondering. I know. I think you may get a lot of questions like, how did you get your vision executed from what we know as the paper, from the paper to the screen? How was that process? That I think that may be a good point to a good starting point.
So he's a filmmaker. So if you can give him the secret sauce of yours, that
guys, I can do you one better. If I can screen share, I can show you exactly what I did.
You can do it. That would be great.
Yeah. Let me show you. Just close all my work on my desktop here, so I'm not sharing nonsense with you. Let's see, screen share. Oh, host disabled participant screen sharing. So you have to give me permission to screen share, and I can show you stuff.
Wait. Wait. How can I do that? You can start explaining. I will add.
So, mainly, I'm a very visual thinker. Like, it's a problem for me. For example, it takes me a very, very long time to read a script because when I'm reading it, I start seeing the movie in my head, and then sometimes if the scenes are fun or if the shot is cool, I'm not reading anymore. I'm just like watching a movie, so I have to come back and read again and again and again. So for me, thinking about the movie, I always saw the images in my head, and what I thought would work best would be I'm trying to see the movie as many times as I can before it exists. So that means when we had budget for it, I worked with a storyboard artist. And when we ran out of money, I drew the storyboards myself. And then I would, let me see if I can I share? Oh yeah, I can. Okay, perfect. So here you guys will appear as well. So here's the storyboards. And you see, if you remember the opening shot of the movie, it's pretty much the same there. You see like it tilts down, the naked people running in front, we're moving through a party. Here they're getting pushed on this side, where in fact they actually got pushed on this wall over here. And then you see Aeolus there in the window, and we follow around with him, turn around, see Frank here in the chair. And there's, little things change depending on the day, obviously, from when you end up shooting. But what I did is I basically worked with a storyboard artist to storyboard the entire film. And then again, so there's some scenes that we spent more money on, so we storyboarded a bit better. There's a wonderful storyboard artist called Peter Beck. He's really just such a talented guy, so much fun to work with. And all of these exist a bit in a vacuum. So we went to scout the location 2 years before we were filming, because we thought we were going to get going with a different actor. That all collapsed, but we had all these locations, so it gave me a good idea of roughly what was available in the area, how we could cover it, how we could film it. So I used these locations to come up with rough ideas of how I would do everything. And then my first version of trying to see the movie before I could watch the movie is I did here animatic. So I took all the storyboards, they were digital. So then I put them into my editing program, and I went frame by frame by frame, and I read with my boring voice every single line of dialogue, every single direction. And you can see here, Can you hear that? Can you guys hear the audio from this video or not?
No,
No? Okay, right, sorry.
you have to put.
It's me reading the script, so it's probably for the best if you don't.
All right.
But basically I just made the movie with paper and pencil drawings, you know? So here is the whole opening scene. You guys can see this, right?
Yeah.
So you see, we go through the whole thing, and I would just take them, and I would basically try to make the movie as much as possible. So, you know, we're playing the scene, and it has all the timings. You see Frank is now walking his dog, and he goes outside, you know, and all these things. And it's fun as well because, you know, when you're making a low budget movie, if you don't plan everything, you're not going to get everything you want. You're not going to get anything you want, really, I think. So I planned this movie carefully, every single shot, every single scene, and I'm very proud that most of our storyboards made it into the final movie. You know, it's really is very, very similar to what you're seeing. So I could watch this version is a 62-minute version of The Wave, which is here's all the shots and the scenes, and here you see them sitting around talking to each other. And it's very similar to how the final film came out. And then with certain transitions, I think I have them in here as well. Oh no, it's only stored. Oh no, I did it. There we go. So there were certain shots that that I knew was going to be very ambitious visual effects. So me and the visual effects supervisor, who you can actually see in this shot, that's him, Patrick Lawler. So this is us in his neighborhood, and we would make fake versions of the shots, and we would practice the effects to see what we could come up with. Because if we could come up with something cool, then we could shoot it like this. And if we couldn't do it, then we would change the way in which we could shoot. So this one, I don't know if there's that many effects in this. Oh, this is just a placeholder. Okay, that's funny. It's just Patrick by himself. So we would then go and do here you go, VFX tests. So here we did more and more tests. So this is the shot actually with the effects in place. So now we're trying different hits. There you go. So now it like gets more surreal, and we actually started trying to do different trippy worlds to try and give different motion and energy. And if you go to the final film, you can see there's different versions of this basically get progressively better and better. Like I'm jumping all over the place, but you can see there's like different versions of the effects we use to. So this is again like in making the VFX for the trippy world, you know, like the texture, everything looks very surreal. I took pictures on anamorphic lenses, and we tried to make the trippy world. So this is me at the camera house, but you see like I isolated the eyes, and I bring up all the colors, and I get rid of all the shadows, and you see all the texture of the hair on my face is moving. And this is our cinematographer, Aaron Grasso. And here again, I bring up his eyes. I made it all a bit surreal. And basically, to answer your question in the longest way possible, step by step. You know, first it's a drawing, then it's another version, then I shoot a bit more, a bit more, a bit more. I try new things. And then eventually, to raise money for the movie, I made a teaser. So this is like basically a fake trailer, like a mood film for The Wave, just using my friends as actors. And this is some drone footage I had from a job I did. You know, so I was like trying to get a sense of the aesthetic of the film, just using actors and friends. Again, you can already see bright colors. You can already see some of the transitions are beginning to come to life. But this is just us in a park with a drone. And this is a shot where I was practicing to make this surreal living painting effect. This is a shot I got on a job in the Dominican Republic. I was doing a travel commercial, and I found this beautiful house, and I got out the car, and I was just walking with my camera, and I put it in. And I probably made this in 2014, just practicing to make the effect more and more real. And then again, you know, I see it practicing here, having their eyes change color, figuring out the aesthetic. And it's all just layers and layers and layers, and trying one way, trying a new way. again, just drone footage. And here you go. So this is now the same, the shot in the movie where he gets hit by the car and he's like this. So
Yes.
this is version 4 of my testing.
All
So you
right.
see, it's not good, but it's, you're beginning to get a sense of that. This is similar to the shot where you had Justin going like this. And so these foreground things didn't work very well, but I liked the movement going around, and I found, okay, so I don't want to put too much stuff inside there, but if I go wrap around his head, I can hide that transition. So then when you get to the actual movie, and let me know, guys, if I'm moving too fast. Like, I know I get very excited about these things, so I don't want to, ruin it all. But it's when you get to the final movie. Okay, I'm gonna struggle to find it here. But basically, when you get to the movie, it's all that process, step after step after step. So for me, it was because I was very scared. I've worked on many movies. I've never made my own feature film. It was, how can I watch this movie as many times as possible before I have to make the movie? So I know what works. I know what's fast. I know what's too slow. I know what's cool, what's not cool, what effect looks good, what doesn't look good. And that was the process for me, trying as much as I can.
Right.
Very long answer. Sorry.
No,
Thank you.
I
Thank you.
think it's perfect, actually.
Okay.
Wow.
I really love that kind of answers. What was the another question you maybe asked too often? What was the inspiration behind behind the film, behind the wave?
Tell him about the drugs thing.
Yeah. So it's two things basically. The writer producer of this movie, he saw some of my music videos and he wanted to do a film with me, and we were trying to do this little like not very interesting horror movie. And I told him, I was like, look, a lot of these ideas are a bit boring. Can I try something a bit different? So I made a proof of concept for the same characters, but in a different situation with different entities. So as I was telling Adrian about it, it's, the script had like spiders and ghosts from another dimension. I said, that's boring. Like, let's have something based on physics or something based on light, something just different. So I made this little proof of concept in my house, just using my housemates and my friends. And Carl, when he saw that and he realized basically what I can do with no money, he just decided, look, let's not try to make some bad movie. Let's try and make a good movie together. And Carl's cousin is the basis of this story, because Carl's cousin was the firefighter, the Warren. He's the real life Warren. He was a firefighter. He had a heart condition. Pills were making him dizzy, putting his colleague's life at risk. So he stopped taking the pills. 2 years later, he died of a heart attack. They said it was suicide because he didn't take his medication, and they left his family with no money. And, in America, which is a health industry dystopia, Carl wrote the film, I think, a little bit for catharsis. The word catharsis, like exercising some anger about who is the person who would sign that? Who is the person who would destroy this family like this? And I had introduced him to DMT. It's a very, very strong psychedelic drug. And he had a very strong, beautiful spiritual experience on it. And he wanted to make this story about essentially exploring the expression, the gray area. It's not black and white, it's gray. The messy area where you're not a good guy, but you're not a bad guy, but if you're still doing the things without questioning them, then maybe you are indirectly a bad guy. So that was the exploration of Frank. And we wanted to explore psychedelic philosophy, essentially, with the movie, a question of the universe. What seems like chaos can actually be destiny. So that's kind of what led to the film becoming what it was.
I was going to ask you about, have you read any author that deals with, experimented with LSD to see other realities? Because there's a lot of literature, sci-fi, and also, experimental, call it, or scientific.
I mean, for me personally, yeah. I mean, I had read Rick Strassman's DMT, the Spirit Molecule, and that fascinated me. I'd also read and watched a lot of Terence McKenna, and also Aldous Huxley and Ralph Waldo Emerson as well, who he talked about platforms and lenses, and I found that to be very profound. And also from my own personal experience, I had psychedelics and generally plant medicine has shaped my outlook on the nature of reality many times over, and I'm sure will continue to.
If you go to Mexico, let me know. I know a shaman who, no, the ayahuasca. Have you done the ayahuasca?
Ayahuasca, I haven't done. No.
Oh,
ayahuasca, I'd love to do. I've done everything around it, just not ayahuasca itself.
No, it's kind of strong. I mean,
yeah. No, I've heard.
Yeah. I mean, but I was remembering something, but you know,
I mean, it stays with you.
You know, the dialogue between Sheila and the first dialogue when Sheila, well, the character that Sheila plays starts saying, "Oh, you're a lawyer who," that dialogue felt really so real, and now I understand why. Because all the scene where the people say, "We're gonna keep the money of the," now I understand, because I think that Sheila's character is in a way, you're the script writer talking about doing this catharsis you talk about. Now it makes sense, and
it's also just the. Sorry, go ahead.
No. I know about the dystopia you talk about. I have a lot of friends living in the US. I know the insurance company are the worst assholes you can imagine. I know the damage they do. I mean, and I can relate to that, because I know it's terrible to lose someone because of and again, it's not that guy's fault. It's the whole system as that
it's the same thing. It's like, there's a police officer can just be doing their job, but at the end of the day, if your job is based in injustice, then you're taking part in injustice. And it's funny. Me and Carl, the writer producer of the movie, we really, really love reading angry reviews. And one of the best angry reviews we ever got was somebody who was a health insurance lawyer, whose review was like, "I don't see what's wrong here. He is just doing his job. He's not a bad guy." And we're like, man, that's exactly the point. You are exactly the audience we made this movie for. So you can reflect and say, yeah, man, you're just doing your job, and you got a bonus, and a wife and 2 children were left with no money after the father and husband died. So you're just doing your job, I guess.
Well, yeah, it's funny. Yeah, I really love Sheila as an actress. I'm friends with her co-star in, A Woman Comes Alone the Street at Night.
A Woman Walks Alone at Night.
Arash, he's a German. He lives in and I'm always sending alfajores when the alfajores. Do you know the treat, the Argentinian treat? I will send it. I have to send it to you next time.
Okay.
I send it. Well, my girlfriend traveled to Germany, and I sent to Gideon Buchar because he voiced our short film, and also to Arash. No, he's a great guy. But I remember Sheila's character. I'm glad for her that she's working in the US, because she's amazing. Yeah, and by the way, how did you get all this amazing cast? Because for an indie film.
So I feel like we were just talking over Nicholas as he was about to say something.
Nicholas,
as well.
ask.
I was about to ask a question about you two were talking about the film about the one you mentioned, A Girl Walk Home Alone at Night.
Yeah.
Is it the one that Anna Lily Amirpour directed?
Yeah.
All right. Sounds. I
think that was Sheila's first role.
But yeah, I heard great things about that movie. I really I gotta check it out. I won't lie, but but yeah, it I think it's maybe great. And about the alfajores, I'm taking you. I'm taking a box of alfajores for you to Gil. I'm if I can, you
Oh,
know
okay,
what I
Of
okay.
mean.
course.
Yeah, yeah. Trust me, you get addicted. Every time I talk to Brandon or Chris, they ask me, "Oh, can you send me?" You know who's asked me all the time? You know, director Alex Cox, the guy who's Alex Cox. He made Walker and you know the Ed Harris, Sid and Nancy with Gary Oldman, all this kind of stuff.
Mm.
Yeah, well,
Oh, yes. I think you told me about him as well last
yeah, yeah,
time.
yeah. No, he's all the time. Yeah, well, you're going to send me another box of alfajor. No, no, no.
Alex
You're an ambassador for Argentinian cuisine. Yeah.
Yeah, I was talking to the alfajor. I say, guys, you should sponsor our festival. Blah, but they don't give a shit. I mean, they
Yeah.
they're a big corporation. No, but the
They're
alfajor.
like, you're just going to keep buying them anyway, so why
Yeah.
sponsor? And to answer your question about Sheila and how we got these actors, the wave was going to be made for no money at our houses over the weekend. Like the party house was based on a house where I was living with three other people. We used to have parties there, so we're like, okay, we can just film a party there. It's not a problem. We can ask all our friends to show up. Everything was going to be small, and I can't exactly remember exactly whose hand it landed in, but eventually it got in. Carl, the producer, put it in the hands of Stephen Vincent and Sig. Sig and Stephen, I always forget Sig's last name, but Stephen Vincent was our casting director, and he sent it out to talent agents. And suddenly we were going into, UTA, Paradigm, CAA, ICM. We're going to these huge agencies because there's so many amazing actors who just want to work on something interesting.
Hmm.
It's not always about how much money you have. A lot of them just want to do something interesting. So it landed with Justin Long because his agent Kevin got it at UTA, and he said, "Look, I think Justin would be very good for this." And they offered us Justin a year before we eventually cast him. And I remember when they first said, I was like, "He's too big. I'm a nobody. Carl's a nobody." I mean, Carl's produced a lot of films, but I don't think we have a big enough reputation to justify it. So it's just like, oh, come on, there's no point. Let's not waste our time. And then when we eventually sent it to him, he was very excited because he just wanted to do a cool role where he could play something interesting that he doesn't usually get to play. And then once the film is already moving, once you're already filming, we cast Sheila almost 2 weeks into filming, and we only filmed for 4 weeks, but we pushed all her character stuff later. And we used the actors that we had in place so that we could have more time. And once a machine is already moving, and you can say to an agent, be like, "Look, we don't have much money, but it is this coming week. If they don't have anything this coming week and they connect with the script, will you consider it?" And Sheila read the script and she liked the character, and she came out and she gave us so much humanity in no time, no preparation. It was amazing.
Hmm. No, I remember that the scene where the two characters, the character of Justin and Sheila, are like in this, scenario, and you see this shot from the sky. I remember this film called Lola Run.
Run
Run
around
Lola
by
Run.
something
I
well.
don't know. It is possible that you were inspired by that because it's a moment of pause.
It's I was going to say, it's very funny. There's some movies that people have said a lot when it comes to the wave, and I can confidently say, like, I hadn't seen it. I hadn't seen Run Lola Run. But that's the funny thing about Zeitgeist. Like, you try so hard to be original. You're always trying to be original, but you rarely are. You don't even realize. You don't even realize when you're being inspired by something. You don't realize, like, you'd be watching them. Leaning in towards some music or something that you think is really cool. You're like, man, yeah, this music. I was working with this amazing composer, Eldad Geda, and we're making this music together. And I thought, oh man, that's really, really cool. And then I'd go and rewatch some old film of mine and then be like, shit, like some old film I'd enjoyed and realize like, oh man, I just that's why I like that so much, because it reminds me of this movie. Like, you know, there's just, you don't really, you try to be original, but it's very, very hard to escape.
Mm. Well, the thing is not being original. I think it's just to read the audience in another way, because you are not being original in the sense that everything has been made, but it's your own style, and in that way, you are original because that's you. I mean, of course,
I mean, I'm trying. It's also circumstance. You know, like we were shooting in a park in Albuquerque, New Mexico, and in that moment, you know, it's so intimate. You're on their face. It's so intimate, and I wanted to take a breath out and leave, but I can't leave too much because I'm just in a public park because we don't have the money. We don't have the money to build a crazy set or something like that. So how do I step out of the intimacy of my close-ups into something bigger without showing a world that doesn't look good? So really all I had was overhead. And then I also wanted them to turn around and look at the stars. And I wanted to play with all the patterns on the cushions and the blankets. And so it's a combination of trying to speak your visual language and dealing with your circumstances. And our circumstances were limitations.
Yeah. Well, limitations gives you creativity in a way, because
it's like a
yeah.
I can't remember. It's like constraints breed innovation. I'm butchering it, but yeah, it's you get more and more creative the more you're put into a corner.
It's great that Nicolas is here because he's 21. He's starting his career, so you can tell him all about.
Right on, Nicolas. If there's anything I can say, man, is just go make as much as you can. Don't be afraid of messing up. And the other advice I give you that everybody didn't want to give me before is just learn as much as you can. We've won awards for the visual effects in the wave. I never went to school for visual effects. I just did them on my own music videos. And if there's something I didn't know how to do, I go on YouTube, and some 13-year-old kid in Germany would give me some YouTube education about how to do something. And that's how I learned. And even now, like I just did a job where I was doing 3D, I was doing Blender, and I was learning almost exclusively from YouTube.
Yeah, sure. Have you seen the case of it is I think every case is something apart from every other case. Have you seen what happened recently with this young 17-year-old boy, Kane Parsons? He's the creator of Kane is the creator of a YouTube tendency that use
YouTube tendency
Blender to create a series of short films that is part of a series called The Backrooms. And he has he just signed on a contract with A24 to produce a film about that. And
amazing.
And yeah, it's really crazy, but it's really cool. What is captivating about the story is that you can almost you can make a movie nowadays. You can make a movie with everything, and you can learn it from everywhere. And talking about everywhere, have you seen
Everything Everywhere All at Once?
It was the VFX. The effects were created by a group of 6 people. That were
6 people over the course of a year.
Yes, from YouTube. And it's now nominated for best special effect at the Oscars. I know the Oscars. You can like them. You can really.
Yeah, but
like
it all that matters is its legitimacy. It's
yes.
it's something real. And I think I would say, like when I was 21, we were shooting on mini DV, and everybody was saying, "Oh, you're so lucky you can shoot on tape." And we had to work with celluloid, and we had to process it. And I still had to work with celluloid. I still had to process film and edit on Steambex, and we had to at school. But the technology we have and the access to education, the access to information that you have now is incredible. It's incredible. And it's no different, like I'm 37. It's no different for me. You and I can watch the same YouTube videos, and then it really boils down to how much passion do you have, and how hard are you willing to work? And I love what I do. I love it. When I did the VFX on the wave, I barely slept for 4 months. I barely saw my wife for 4 months, but I didn't hate my job. You know, it was hard. It hurt. It hurt my brain. I think it gave me all this white hair, but I didn't hate it. And if you have the passion and you have drive, right now we are in an era of technology that is, I mean, it's incredible. It really is incredible. You can do stuff as this guy in your story displayed. You can do stuff on Blender that is photorealistic and costs no. Blender is free. You know, it's you can do it, and it costs you no money, and you can make things that beforehand were never possible. With AI now, like I'm telling you, like I shot a commercial. I'll show you funny on my phone. I was doing a commercial, and we had all these extras, and we couldn't fit them all on the green screen stage. So I used an app on my phone. Let me try and show you. And I did 3D scans of them. So I walked around and I scanned the person in 3D, and then I put them afterwards in the shot, in the background of my shot, and I can light them in Blender. And I made a world on my computer by myself. And it's because of the technology and because I'm a nerd, you know, because I enjoy this, because I see this new technology and I get excited. And you know, I have friends be like, oh, I don't want to learn anything new. And I used to be like that. I don't want to learn anything new. I've worked so hard to be a director and an editor and a camera operator. I don't want to learn something new. But as soon as you just shut up and pay attention and always be curious and always be hungry, there's so much you can do now. It's almost at the point where the only thing that's stopping you is your imagination. Almost. It's still a little bit expensive. You don't want to shoot a movie on an iPhone 6S, but you can shoot a movie on an iPhone 11s, and you can get a little, you know, you get those little anamorphic adapters that you put on the thing. I shot a music video with an iPhone 11s with an anamorphic adapter on a gimbal. My entire rig outside of my phone was like $240, and it got me more awards than any other video I've made because I was having fun. I was being inventive, but the technology is in your hands.
Yes, I would like I would like to later send you some of my music videos if I can share them with you.
Absolutely.
I made some videos great. I made some videos on urban music. I made them with the first one. I remember I started in 2021. I started with you know, the Sony little cameras, the digital cameras, the small ones.
This little guy?
No. Something like
A7S?
I can't remember how was it, but it was like this.
Okay.
It was really small. I had it was a shooting the shooting of a video clip. I can remember it was the door that put me now in the place where I can show you something, and I really appreciate. I know I can show you or Adrian or anyone the video, and it could be something like of a rookie work, but it was that moment, that time, and you can really learn. But you are saying, well,
you can always learn.
You can always
I'm
learn.
telling you, man, the things, you know, I think there's a lot of pressure to make money as much as you possibly can doing this. But I'll tell you this, the things I'm most proud of that I've made rarely ever made me money. And the stuff that has made me the most money as a director, editor, VFX artist, all these other things, it's usually something I don't really care about. And so it's always important to be make stuff with your friends. Like I have my next movie I'm hopefully doing at the end of the summer, very, very small comedy horror movie. It's only happening because I was making comedy sketches for YouTube during COVID, you know. We needed to make something where it could be only four of us. You know, there's no people. And even once one of them we were shooting, we had a COVID scare, so there could only be three of us making it. It was really painful. But you know, I was just doing it to have fun because I love doing it and because you're always learning. You're always learning when you're playing around like this. So it's really just a case of there's never any excuse. You just got to be going out and making stuff, and it's always going to make you better. And sometimes a little trick you learn here becomes a trick you later use. Like there's so many things I did on the wave, especially from visual effects, that I learned from, you know, bullshit jobs that help me pay the bills.
Yeah, I recently I came back from here I from the coastline from the beach. I was working as a waiter, and 2 months of working as a waiter got me in possession of my I've been filming the music videos with the others cameras because they were directors of photography, and it was great. I was the director, but anyways, and now I've got in my possession my first camera, which is a Canon.
Nice.
I'm gonna show
Which
it to
one?
you. T5i.
Nice.
Yeah,
Yeah, that's
so
the fun thing, man. Like that's one thing I'm very jealous of for your generation. Like with the T5i with all the Canon range, you can really get a cinematic image. Whereas when I was working with Mini DV, which was the affordable cameras for our generation, it did not look cinematic. I mean, it looked like video. It was bad. Whereas like with that, yeah, that's a DSLR. I mean, you can do magic with that. You can really, if you get yourself an old EF mount lens, a really old piece of glass, maybe an anamorphic one, you can do some de-squeeze in post. You can get a cinematic picture with that. It's really up to your imagination and your work.
I was telling Adrian the other day. I think if I'm remembering it quite well, I was telling him about a passion project I have from when I was, I think, 16 years old, and now it is taking a new form. It's something else, but I have been writing it. I made some casting calls. I'm looking for some of the things I have that are I have to find, but I'm so
It's all very slow, man. It's
yeah,
all
yes.
my next. So I have 3 or 4 films I'm trying to make now at the same time, but one of them I've been writing for 11 years. And it's gone different versions, and it changes and grows, and I grow and change, and then I come back to it and I attack it again. But I mean, the wave took 5 years. It took 5 years from when I got the first version of the script until the movie came out. It was 5 years. This stuff is slow. You just
Yes.
it's good. Give yourself time. You got to give yourself time with these things and let it become something beautiful, something that it should be.
Yes, I'm doing this movie about it is about it spans across the last 3 years of high school, and it is about a boy. It is of course based on me, but it's hard to make I think no I think it's quite hard to make an auto. It's hard to make a coming of age film without without getting to be something of autobiographic. I think it is.
Yeah, I think there's something autobiographic in all the work you do. You know,
Well,
in it's always, but that's an important thing for me. I think at least it's an important thing to keep in your work because it keeps it human. It keeps it connected. Because I was talking to Adriana about it. It's like, you know, when you watch a film that doesn't have that human connection, you don't care. You don't care. It's like, you know, when I watch a Michael Bay movie, I'm like,
yes.
okay, man, fuck, everything's exploding, and you destroyed more cameras than I could ever afford. In one shot, you destroyed 20 fucking cameras. Fine. I don't care. I don't care about what's happening. I don't care about the people. I don't care. They all die, they all live, it doesn't matter. But it's because there's no heart, there's no human. So I think it's your responsibility as a director to put some of you into your work, to put some humanity, some punto de acceso. Does that make sense? Is that Spanish?
Yes, sí,
Yeah,
sí, sí.
it
Perfecto.
was. It is great. Yeah, it is. I was sorry. I got my brain went through some different directions.
Yeah.
Like we say in Argentina, me fui por las ramas. But
Branch out, you know, when you start talking with different subjects.
yes,
Yeah.
well,
Somos lo mismo, amigo. Es el problema, la problema con los artistas.
Artistas, sí.
Your artistas, you know,
yeah,
your brain
yes.
is always going 1,000 different ways, and you have to bring it back to right here. It's hard.
The double sides of brainstorming.
Double-edged sword. Yeah.
Like, well, I'm making this film. It is about this boy that is navigating his senior year in high school, but it started like that. Now I'm taking it to a new approach, which is it takes place in a context, in a kind of reality, if you want to call it like that, because I say kind of reality because everyone on the planet has their own vision, and it quite fits into what we consider right or wrong, but doesn't matter right now. It is about this boy's journey through the senior year and how he is connected to a girl he really loves. He really loves her, but we don't know until the middle of the story if something is going to happen. It is, you know, what Tarantino said about the suspense. No, you get you get the rubber band. I think you say that like that, the rubber band, and you stretch it like that. This is the relationship between them, and when you let go of one side, I think it will surprise because the audience, even if the movie is watched by one person or 20, or it is projected on a festival, I think the importance of the movie is showing what the creative process can be.
I think it's also a very healthy mentality. You know, it's you gotta be making this art because it's fun to share it, and it doesn't matter if it's shown to 80 million people and you make a lot of money, or if it's just shown to 10 people and it touches their heart, because that's pure. That's the joy of it, at least for me, I think.
If it touches one's heart, it can take millions. It can touch millions.
Yeah,
that's the key. I mean, we were talking about how nowadays, well, Michael Bay, I hate Michael Bay. I mean, I'm sure he's a fantastic director in the technical sense. I wouldn't know. No? Well, you...
I mean, yeah, look, he's done incredible stuff, but I don't know. I really hated the last film. It really bothered me. But
well,
I'm also just like, you know, yeah, whatever. I'm not. It's not my job.
But the thing is, again, is to. I mean, if you can transmit that emotion, it doesn't matter. It takes only 1 minute to take to create that emotion. And again, you can do this story about these characters. If one people gets moved by that, I'm sure a lot of people will do.
Yeah,
that's the thing.
And even if it's only one, it's still beautiful. You know, one of my favorite things that happen with my film is I still get messages from around the world, from somebody in New Zealand who saw my movie, or someone in Malaysia saw my movie and just says like, "Hey, I really love this movie. It really made me think about something," or it was such a fun escape, or it was such a fun ride. Like, even if it doesn't have the profound, beautiful, poetic intentions you have, I've never known anything that feels better than somebody reacting to your art, because it's so much of you. You give so much to make this thing, to orchestrate this thing, to try and make them feel something, and then when it works, crazy.
Actually, one of the things I really appreciate about your film, it's a film that has to be seen in the theater, not in the computer. No, yes.
Well,
because...
I'm very flattered you say that, but every decision I always knew, you know, I'm still a nobody director. I knew that there was always going to be a very big chance that somebody would watch this film on their phone, on an iPad, being like, you know, in bed Sunday morning, hungover or something, like, I want to watch something silly, you know, I want to watch something colorful. So I dreamed of people watching it in the theater, but I always knew that there was a chance that they would watch it on a small screen. So I tried not to make anything that would limit somebody. So, like, you know, the film is, in the aspect ratio, is 2:40 to 1. And we were almost going to film like 3:1, like, or 2:78 to 1 or something. But then I thought about it. I was like, okay, if you're holding this film on your phone and you're only this much of an image and you're trying to see it, I think I would lose some of my audience. So I made a painful sacrifice there, and I decided to shoot less CinemaScope, so that more people could enjoy the movie. Because at the end of the day, that's the best high I've ever felt, is somebody enjoying my work.
Don't worry, we will show you in the festival in June. So,
well, yeah, thank you so much.
We will organize it. And do you have any more questions, Nico? And yes, if he can show, yes, send him. It's okay if he can send.
Yeah, Nicolas, you have my email now from setting this up. Listen, man, like, nobody ever gave me advice. Nobody ever helped me. So anything I can do to help somebody else really means a lot to me. So if you want to send me stuff for notes, if you want to see my early work and ask any questions, my door is open.
Great. I really appreciate that. It would be great. Yeah, I'll send you an email with my work, and I hope we can exchange some messages on the email. And yeah, sounds great.
Well, good. No, we hope you can come to Buenos Aires someday. I will really glad.
Oh man, yeah, that's
I will try to go to the US sometime. The problem is the fucking visa. I can go to Canada, Mexico. I can go everywhere except I see. Actually, I have an offer to help to produce a film there. Say, okay, I will do it from here, because I don't just no, but if you can come, yes, please come. And if you need anything, I will now send the mails to the producers. I will contact you with all these cool people in LA. There are cool people out there. It's you need some
I'm sure.
crazy person.
I've just been, you know. Yeah, exactly. Some connector. I've just been at my computer working like crazy for about 5 years, and I barely go outside, let alone meet people. So this is good.
Yeah, thank you. Well, thank you very much. I will start doing small videos, and then we will publish the podcast. And again, thank you very much. And I'll send you the photos when we show your film here, so you can see the reaction. Thank you. Well, bye,
guys. Thank you for taking the time, Nicolas. Lovely to meet you.
Bye.
Good luck, guys.